Everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSI DFS Fantasy NFL Picks. I'm Rich Magro 31. Got 11 game slate this week. We got another London game, so it takes that off the slate, and then we got Green Bay and Pittsburgh on by. So should be a decent slate. Did really well last week on the cash core that I threw. If you watched the video, and threw an FSI with some other help. Most of our members scored over 200 points. So cash and GPPs and easily cash and cash. So did well there. Been hit or miss on some of those showdown slates recently. Just seems like they find some of the worst games to put in prime time. Just wish they had more flexible scheduling to be able to put better matchups up there. But as the season goes on, they are able to do that more and more. So a little bit of weather going on here. Before we get started here, just wanted to remind you that we got a lot of other cool things going on at FSI. So if you go to the description of the video, you can go to our website and see what we have. McKinley's got NHL there. He's doing videos Monday through Friday. So, and they're free of charge on this channel. So subscribe to our channel so you know when those videos are coming out and check them out. Been really helpful for those who don't understand NHL DFS. He does a good job breaking down, simplifying it so you can enjoy and play it too. We continue to have PGA coverage through swing season. We have soccer has been going strong, international break. I'll have NASCAR video coming up for you too, and MLB postseason still free. So lots of things. So come check it out. Okay, let's get into the slate. So two things if you haven't watched these videos before. I am horrible at pronouncing names. I butchered a bunch in the last showdown slate. I try. I just sometimes I don't know what it is. I just can't pronounce names correctly. The other thing is maybe some misspelling. Sometimes she autocorrects on me and I don't catch it, so I apologize for that. And the third thing is it's impossible to put all the plays on the sheet. There might be some good guys that are out there that are good plays, but I just try to narrow it down. So if you don't have much time, you can just kind of turn on the video, and then I guarantee it's going to be beneficial if you listen to the whole breakdown. But if you're running short on time and you just need to kind of look at a snapshot of who's in, who's out, just some of the plays there to build your lines, or just take the stack section on the bottom, and the 5 favorite games that we have, and the stacks that probably be best to play. Might get a little shorter next week because there's 6 teams I think 6 teams on bye, so that's going to be might be a little bit more condensed during these like heavy bye weeks, but most weeks we should have 5 good matchups for you. And the color coded, obviously red people are out, orange are doubtful, yellow are questionable. If they're dark green, then they're questioned on the injury report, but most likely going to play. And then I put a blue one for like lingering injuries, because we just have some people like that too. And there's a wide receiver one that I missed that I'll talk about when we get into that site. So let's go game by game here and see what we got. First game we have is Commanders and Atlanta Falcons. So it's a 42.5 total. Should be a close game, 1 to 2 point spread. Start with the Commanders. Howell throws a lot, but gets sacked a lot. Just doesn't have any protection. So, and Atlanta's got a pretty decent pass rush. So I think he's in play in the cheap range here, but don't love him. This game is in a dome, so it could be one of the best offensive ones. If the weather disrupts a lot of these outdoor ones, it's just going to be very windy and rainy and just kind of a miserable weekend across the United States. So Robinson, I think, viable as running back. Gibson, I don't really love him. Sometimes he steals goal line carries, but it just really doesn't have like a role that I love. Wide receivers, it's roulette. It's kind of like Kansas City. McLaurin should be the man, but you see Dotson, Samuel get some plays. Samuel has some trick plays. You just never know with that. But I think the most constant one is Logan Thomas, but probably Logan Thomas, he gets injured so often. He's like the Anthony Davis of tight ends. So, but he's definitely in place. So pretty much maybe a little bit of Brian Robinson in this game. Maybe how I think Logan Thomas, the tight end, pretty much the only play I probably will end up putting my lineups. On the Atlantic side, Ritter's gotten better. They're still a run first offense. They do script some plays for him. Bijan Robinson, I like, but he's just sometimes too expensive, and he just really hasn't. He's got the potential to have like a super explosive game, we just haven't seen it yet. Algier is still there lurking, stealing some of his carries, stealing some of his goal line carries. But the Commanders have been absolutely abysmal against like outside wide receivers. And so I think London, even though he had a really slow start to the season, could be in play here. Mac Hollins, maybe. They got Van Jefferson from the Rams. So he wasn't great there. And I don't think he's up to the playbook. So he might even be active. So you have to see. Maybe Hodge or Scotty Miller would be a surprise. But I really think it's just London here. And then Kyle Pitts. I know that Kyle Pitts has a ton of talent. He struggled this season so far. And Johnny Smith is there also. So it might be like more of a two tight end thing too, with London and Hollins out there. So from this game, if you can pay up for Bijan Robinson, I'm fine with that. London, I think, is in play. Pitts, I think, is in play. And the Atlantic defense, especially how much Howell gets sacked and can potentially turn up over the ball, is definitely in play also. Vikings and Chicago Bears, a 43.5 total, 3-point favorite for Minnesota, who suffered a devastating injury to the number one wide receiver in the NFL, Jefferson, last week. If you missed it, hamstring. So, I mean, it's not like it was an ACL or anything. Hopefully, in a few weeks, he'll be back and ready to go. So, Kirk Cousins, I don't think you can play him in this matchup. Madison, I think, definitely could be more in play here. I know Cam Akers is there, but I don't believe in him that much. After he just had a couple hot weeks of the Rams and then just pretty much faded away. So wide receiver wise, there's really not much left. So Addison is decent. Osborne is decent. We see them having fat lashes of brilliance here and there, but they're not Jefferson. But Minnesota has been pass heavy. We'll have to see if the targets start to go to these two, or if Hockenson, the tight end, picks it up, or if Madison they start to run more. So, I think the weather's going to dictate a lot to this game too. It's going to be raining before. They don't really usually cover Soldier Field. They just let it be. And, it could be a very sloppy, windy. It's going to be hard to throw deep balls. So that's why I think Hockenson's probably the best play here, just because, and Madison out of the backfield too. It's probably going to keep it short. Maybe you can strike gold by figuring out if Powell or Harry are going to be the third wide receiver, or going to, maybe one of them's in the slot, or however they're going to line up and pick up some things. But there's nothing really sure thing here, except for I think Hockenson and Madison, and maybe the Minnesota defense if Chicago reverts back a couple weeks to how bad they were. Justin Fields has come a long way. I think he's definitely in play here. And, this game is my fourth favorite game stack. So I did have Fields or Cousins, but the more I think about it, probably just going with Fields. DJ Moore, their connection, I think, both got priced up after that awesome game that they had last week against Washington and on Monday Night Football, or whatever primetime game it was. I think it was Monday Night Football. Komet is definitely coming into his own also, and has started to be viable as a cheap tight end at 4.6. Not bad. So somebody to look at potentially also there. So I think there's a lot of nice pieces here. I think that with other running back situation, with Johnson out and Herbert definitely out, Johnson with a concussion and Herbert with whatever happened to him, hamstring or something a little bit more serious. He's on the IL or IR, definitely. So Deontay Foreman is going to be definitely the lead back here, but he doesn't really catch balls out of the backfield too much. So think it's just going to be an actual just running back. And if I don't know how much they're going to use him. Maybe if the weather's horrible and they can't throw the ball, he comes. But at that point, I think Fields would become more the running back. So, and Kari blasting game looks like the backup, but I just really don't have any faith in that. Darnell Mooney might be one to keep an eye on here too, because if they need more like short passing or something, he might, if they and they don't have a passing back, he might pick up some more targets and maybe Tyler Scott's. But I think probably what they do is they probably like put Robert Tonyan, I think would be the one that he's the backup tight end. He's probably the one that would be rolled out there the most if it's a situation where they can't really go deep, just have a 2 tight end set and maybe even more blocking for like Fields around the ball. So and the Chicago defense, if Minnesota doesn't have an identity anymore now that they've really lost one of their key cogs to their passing game, and we've seen Kirk Cousins throw pick sixes and like 4 interceptions in some games with 4 touchdowns. So Chicago defense, as bad as they are, I think are also in play also as a punt. Seattle Seahawks and the Cincinnati Bengals, 45 total. Cincinnati favored by 2.5. A little wind here also. I don't think it's going to be as bad as the Chicago game, but it's not going to be like a beautiful spring day there. Let me just look at the weather here. It says 10 to 15 miles per hour, maybe a spotty shower. So nothing like too extreme. Not going to be a downpour or a hurricane or anything. So Seattle side, Geno Smith, I think you can play him, but these are some much better plays. Cincinnati's run defense has been okay, but kind of Walker the third has been good. They did have a bye week last week, so there's speculation that Charbonnet might get some more carries. Maybe they give him a more chance to get some of the workload. So we'll just have to keep on seeing how that backfield is split. But definitely Walker is still, it's not going to be a 50-50 split by any means. And Walker is still the man there. Metcalf is still banged up with his rib injury, suffered week 2, but he had a week off the heel. So hopefully he's back and closer to 100% on that one. Lockett's definitely in play also for some strange reason. Metcalf sits. Jackson Smith Njigba is definitely somebody to pay attention to if they start running 3 wide receiver sets. But I did read someplace where they said that part of the reason that he hasn't been successful this season, and he's a very talented guy, is because they've had to run more 2 tight end sets with like Font and like Disley or Parkinson out there, just because to try to mitigate the pass rush, because their offensive line hasn't been the greatest when it comes to passing production. So the 2 tight end set helps with that, and then you lose a wide receiver usually in those formations. So just takeaway here, I think more like people are going to be on the Bengal side. And I think the run back with Metcalf or Lockett are going to be the key pieces that you're going to look at for this. If you think Cincinnati's going to struggle, like the Seattle defense, I think could be in play in a GPP. Don't know. There's $100 more than the Bengals, so they're kind of in the mid range. So I don't think I'll have a ton of ownership there. Bengals side, Burrow's looking better. I think he still has a cap problem. Still think that's going to not make him 100%, but he looks less limited than he has over the early weeks of the season. Even though we're like only in week 6 here, he's starting to get it. Mixon, I'm out on this week. If people want to pay Mixon, that's fine. But the Seahawks run defense has been decent, and Mixon had a really good matchup last week and did absolutely nothing with the opportunity he was given. So until I actually see something from him, I'm out. I think it's more about the wide receivers. Jamar Chase just went absolute nuclear. Had him as a core play last week, worked out well. Going back to it this week, think he's a great play, and he's a nice little savings over some of the other bigger boys up top, where he's saving you like $1,000 from Hill, and he's saving you $700 over Cooper Kupp. So, and I think you can get just as much production. Higgins could be back, but Higgins is their deep threat. If it's going to be this windy, then I don't know if he's going to be like a really great option. Sometimes the dude just goes out and does a cardio workout on Sunday and, doesn't really see many targets, just out there running routes and like nobody's throwing him the ball. So Boyd's always kind of in play also too. If Higgins is out again, then that definitely increases Boyd's stock. Uh, can't believe that they got rid of their tight end that they were using earlier in the season. Irv Smith is decent. Like, he was a backup in Minnesota. I don't think he's like world starting tight end. Maybe he's like a better blocker or something, but he's not like the world's greatest pass receiver out there. So I think from this game, like, Burrow's definitely in play, Chase definitely in play, maybe some Boyd. If you trust Mixon, go ahead. I don't. And then Cincinnati defense could potentially be in play a little bit too. Next game, and this game should be pretty rainy and stormy, with really strong winds, is San Francisco 49ers and Cleveland Browns. Now, for San Francisco, this should be a blowout, but the total of this game is only 35.5. It's only because Cleveland is playing with PJ Walker, a rookie quarterback. They have no running back after they lost Chubb. Ford's done little. Hunt's come back and really hasn't done anything amazing. Like, I thought DTR would come out and be the starting quarterback after having a phenomenal preseason, but he's struggled in regular season games against first string NFL players. I guess he did much better against the second and third string guys. So, but I think down the road, like, that guy's got like a ton of talent, and who knows, like, this, if you have like $1 to spare, and this could absolutely completely backfire on you. But in an ultimate GPP, I'm saying don't waste money in the Million Maker or anything like that. Just play for $1. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is such a dynamic quarterback. He's only 4,700. Now, Walker's 4,000. So I think people are going to gravitate towards him as a punt play because he's minimum price and he's a starter and he opens up a lot for salary. We've got like 3 running backs that do that also. So you don't need to play Walker. But I think, if he gets out there and he's completely ineffective or he gets hurt, then Thompson Robinson could get into the game and could, I know San Francisco has a really tough defense, but if they don't have a book on him other than the preseason, they prepared for Walker most of the week, which is kind of surprised. So my guess is that they would prepare for Thompson Robinson. I just think that he's such an electric player that it's worth a shot, potentially. But he couldn't play. He might not play at all, which, then you lose your $1 because you punted your quarterback and got a 0. So it's definitely going to open up salary in other places, but the rest of your line will really need to work out for that to happen. Anyways, on the San Francisco side, Brock Purdy, I like him. I just don't love him. He's a game manager. He's a really solid NFL quarterback. He keeps this team running, but like, things are so spread out. And I think the biggest key to this slate here is, do you want to pay up for Christian McCaffrey? I said don't last week, except for a GPP, and he did actually go off. I think the big thing is going to be Elijah Mitchell. If he's out, then McCaffrey is going to get all the carries and everything. And even if the blowout, he's going to continue to. And in that game script, if you can, it's hard to get up to him in cash, but in GPP, he's a phenomenal play. If Mitchell's in, I might consider him also, because if this is the blowouts it's supposed to be, he could get some run to start to spell McCaffrey after all the miles he's been put on the first 6 weeks. For the passing game, Ayuk, it's a great matchup against Cleveland. And I know Cleveland's defense has really been celebrated, but it was more the matchups that they had. This is going to be a really tough matchup for them. So I don't think their defense is going to rise to the challenge. I think this is going to be an ugly, low-scoring game overall, but I think Ayuk is definitely somebody in play. Not Samuel until I start to see some consistency. I know the talent's there, but I'm not super excited. And Kittle, I think, is in play at tight end, but I think there's a lot of other better plays. Sneaky play, very low owned in a team that should put up some points, but they only have 22 total here. And if it's a complete blowout, they're not going to be throwing a Kittle. They're going to be running one of the running backs. And San Francisco's defense, if you can get to them, are going to be very expensive, but usually I say pair like key running back with a defense. If Mitchell's in the game, I do that. But the game script, if McCaffrey's there, unless he gets his very, very early, I think it's a negative game script. If you're playing the San Francisco defense hoping for a shutout, I think you want the game a little bit closer if you're paying that much for McCaffrey to try to get him to his fullest potential. Like I said, the Cleveland side, there's really nobody here that I want unless you're punting the quarterback and then maybe pair it with Amari Cooper or Elijah Moore, who they're continuing to run gadget plays and stuff for, try to get him involved in the offense. He's not the greatest route runner or wide receiver, but he is an electric player and probably is going to break a slate someday, but I don't know if tomorrow's going to be the day. Pretty much ugly game. Move on to the next one. New Orleans in Texans 42.5 total. New Orleans is favored by 1.5, so this should be a close game also. I toyed with putting this as one of my stack games, but I think you have two really good defenses here. Derek Carr, the reason I have him blue is I just really think that he's still injured, can't really throw the ball that deep. And I said, don't play Olave because he's the deep threat. And he ended up catching a touchdown just because he was like left open in the back of the end zone. It was a short pass still, and nobody caught him. He didn't catch it. Nobody covered him. He didn't catch a deep ball. But Alvin Kamara just seems to be matchup proof here. If they're behind, he gets a ton of targets out of the backfield because it's really a short passing game right now. If they're ahead, they keep on feeding him the ball. You don't see much like Kendra Miller anymore. So love Kamara. I think he's like in play in all formats and one of my favorite cash plays if you can get to him. If you're not playing all three punt running backs like a lot of people, I think will to try to pay up in other areas. Olave, like I said, I like the talent here, but I don't think that Carr's arm or shoulder is well enough to realize his full potential. But Thomas, I think, is as the underneath like volume guy catching short passes. I think it's a perfect situation for him. The tight end situation, I'm not really interested in Foster, Marino, or Jimmy Graham's like washed up. But Taysom Hill, I continue to play at least one a lineup every single week because he is the backup quarterback. I obviously don't trust Jameis Winston because the choice of Derek Carr coming out and playing Hurt or playing Jameis Winston, they went with Carr, and Hill got some tight end run. He got some running back run. He actually got some QB run last game, and I think we'll continue to see that. And it's just a matter of time before he has a really good slate. And if he throws like 2 touchdown passes or throws a touchdown pass and scores a rushing touchdown at 3.8, I mean, that's just going to be massive points for that position at that price point. Houston side, CJ Stroud, I like. I actually picked him up on one of my fantasy teams where I was kind of struggling with quarterback for season long. I think he's got a lot of potential. He's efficient, but I think the Saints defense is not going to be great. Plus, his wide receivers are all banged up. So Pierce is starting to come around, but New Orleans has a pretty good run defense. So I'm not interested in him. Nico Collins, I think you can definitely play. He might be the only healthy wide receiver on the team. Robert Woods is injured or still dealing with an illness. And then Dell is questionable, but probably doubtful just based on if his practice. So that's another piece. So might open up Dalton Schultz a little bit too. So again, I really love a lot of this game besides like maybe Kamara and Thomas on the Saints side for cash plays, and maybe Collins run it back here. But and both defenses I think are also in play. I think Texans will be pretty popular based on their price points. And if Carr's limited, they might be able to. This might be an ugly, like grinded out game. But again, it's another one that's in a dome that might have better weather, so that might help with it be one of the higher scoring games on the slate. Just if the weather curtails the offense on other ones. Colts and Jaguars, second best game on the slate here. Might be a little rainy in Jacksonville, but it's a little bit windy, but nothing too major. Richardson is out with an AC joint injury. So Gardner Minshew will be starting. This game is 43.5 total. Jacksonville's favored by 3.5. So Minshew, I mean, he's he's always exciting. If you need to punt the quarterback, I like it. I don't think he's a cash play per se, but in GPP, definitely like it. I said last week, I apologize. I said do not play Zach Moss. I did not think this would work. He had a monster game. I was watching Red Zone, and I was like, "What are you kidding me?" He just keeps on running, scoring touchdowns. I was like, unbelievable. So I'm so sorry. I apologize for that. Missed that one. But Jacksonville's had a solid run defense, so I just don't see it working out again this week. And Taylor's back in there, and I just don't see how the two of them can work, especially against this defense. So I think I really like Pittman. I really like Downs. He seems to have a really good rapport with Minshew, and he's pretty cheap. Ogletree at tight end, I don't really like. I'd rather play Grayson if I had my choice among them, but sometimes they run 2 or 3 tight end sets. So, on the Jacksonville side of it, Trevor Lawrence is definitely a cash quarterback, probably going to be the chalkiest one, probably most people's QB1 on the slate. NTN, if you can work him in, I like him, but I don't think he's a priority. Ridley is the deep threat here, and then Kirk is definitely going to be getting more targets with Zay Jones out also. So really like Kirk. 5.4 should be able to get you anywhere from like 13 to 16 DK points. So definitely a lot of upside at his price. And really, I think it's going to his price kind of in no man's land. So he's a nice savings off of some of the guys that are higher up, and kind of in a range where people might not be looking or landing on. So like him also. So you can double stack it with Lawrence or single stack it. Ingram, the tight end, I think in a great spot also. So if you want to go like Kirk and Ingram and like not play Ridley, then that's fine too. And cash, I don't think I'd stack like all 4, but if you want 2 pieces to go with Lawrence, I completely get it. So lots of options. Jacksonville defense can definitely be in play here against the Colts and Gardner Minshew. As much as he's an exciting player, he can also provide some turnover upside also. So most of the time, like I said, if you look at the stack here, I'm going to take Lawrence, Ridley, or Kirk, or both. Ingram we could throw in there also, and then I'm going to run it back with Downs or Pittman from the Colts. Probably the highest total of the week. No, probably second highest total. Because the highest total is going to be Arizona and the Rams. Is Carolina and the Dolphins here. It's good. It's a 14.5 spread, so Miami should absolutely annihilate them. So I like Miami, and I toyed with like this final game. I one of the guys in FSI, like Jesse, told me that this should be the game that we looked to put, because I asked the team like who do you like for this 5th game, and he came with this one, and I just don't know like with a blowout if it's going to work. But then the more and more I looked at the weather and some of the other ones, like I just kind of reluctantly put this in as a 5th one because it does have the highest total, and I think that there is a little bit of chance of a run back. So on the Carolina side, running back Sanders is out, so Chuba Hubbard is back in our lives again. He will catch balls out of the backfield. I think he's going to be very, very chalky, a cash game staple, and I completely understand it. The Dolphins have not been great against the run, so I think he's definitely has some upside. Bryce Young not going to play. It just doesn't do enough yet, and Miami's got one heck of a pass rush, so I think he's going to get sacked a lot. But Thielen, I think, is definitely in play at the wide receiver, because if he's only going to have a chance to throw short passes. So Hubbard and Thielen, I think, are going to be the safety valves. Chuck and Mingo could be in play also, depending if he has enough time to go through his reads to get it to them. Hurst potentially also a tight end, but I think definitely Hubbard's a lock in cash, and Thielen is definitely a very good play. On the Miami side of it, Tua, again, I understand he doesn't really have the rushing upside, and he's a lot more expensive than Stafford Burrow or Lawrence, where I think most people are going to go in cash games. So probably more of a GPP play. Mostert, Amon should be back, but Acne, the really, really good rookie that definitely started off the season really hot, is he's the second most expensive guy on DK, and he's now injured. So I, even if this is a blowout, it would be nice to have him on. I think just is going to maybe run the clock out, but I think it's going to be the Mostert show. Running the ball, catching the ball out of the backfield with Tua. Hill, he's got a goal to have 2,000 yards this season, and I think they're going to try to help him get there. He's just having monster game after game. You're going to have to pay for him, but it's well worth it. But there is going to be a game where Waddle's going to catch a bunch of balls also, and have a great game. And without Acne in the backfield here, that might open up the targets that he was getting to Waddle. So, it's just, and there's a nice really savings in it. It's a chance to get some exposure to this high total for the Dolphins too. And the rest of the guys like Wilson and Berrios, Claypool should be in the, if I don't even know if he knows the playbook or not. And then we've tried the tight ends with Smythe, but just really hasn't gone anywhere. It's just pretty much Hill and most are your most are your biggest plays here. And then I think Waddle is a great complementary one if you want to go three. And then I'd run back with Thielen and or Hubbard here. So that's how I'd stack this game. Next game, we have another one in a dome here with New England Patriots and the Las Vegas Raiders, 41.5 total. Raiders favored by 2.5. Probably if they weren't such a disaster, that I would think actually Thursday night was the Bears game, because the Raiders played on Monday night last week and they just looked bad also. So it's just hard this early in the season. And I think part of the key here, and like I said, that's why I was going to put him in blue, is I think Devontae Adams is not 100%. You just haven't seen, like, he was just such a stud the first couple of weeks, and then he was injured and questionable, but still playing, but just really not putting up the numbers. So I just wonder if that kind of factors in. But looking at the Patriot side of it, Mac Jones, no way. He has turned into just a horrible quarterback, just inaccurate. Stevenson, I liked him. I drafted him in a lot of fantasy teams. I didn't think Elliott would take much away from him, but Elliott's got a presence, but not enough. I thought Stevenson would be the man and just like a bell cow, and just not working out there. And then this wide receiver group is just gross. Like Devontae Parker was good at the Dolphins, and now he's only 3.5, and he's the number one wide receiver on the Patriots potentially. You got Bourne there also. They're cheap guys. If you think the Raiders aren't the best pass defense, so actually they're pretty bad. So opportunity, but can Mac Jones accurately give him the ball is the question. And I thought Hunter Henry is a good tight end, and his target share has just completely declined. And now they're running 2 and 3 tight end sets, and you see Gesicki, he almost got a touchdown in the end zone last week. He dropped, it was overthrown, or just was a bad pass. And then they get Farrell Brown there also. So this is Patriot team's just an absolute mess. So DFS wise, I am not touching any of them. If you land on one of them, then just look at your lineup, maybe move your defense up or down a little bit and see if you can land on somebody else. Vegas, Graffel and not playing, even though it's a revenge game against the Patriots that traded him away to keep Tom Brady. He's supposed to be quarterback of the future. He was supposed to be the heir apparent, and that didn't work out. Kraft loved him, Belichick didn't, or Belichick loved him and Kraft didn't. I think Tom Brady didn't like him, so that's why he got sent away. Anyways, not really relevant here, I don't think. Not playing him. Josh Jacobs, I do like him against this Patriot defense. I think he's definitely solidly in play here. Devontae Adams, play at your own risk. I am waiting until I see that he is healthy. But Jacoby Myers, I think, is a great spot here, and I really like him at 5'8". I'll definitely be playing some him. Hunter Renfro, I just don't understand. He's like Higgins out there just getting cardio, just not getting like targets, running routes, and not really being productive. And Hooper, the tight end, not super excited about him either. So not a ton of plays from this game. Maybe Jacobs and maybe Myers are the only thing that I really consider. Detroit and Tampa Bay, we have 42.5 total. Detroit is favored by 3 points here. So Tampa was off last week, had the bye week, so they should be coming back pretty healthy here. Start with the Detroit side. Jared Goff, I think he's a fade here. I just like Tampa Bay has a decent defense. Like St. Brown is going to be back, so that could be helpful for that. But I just don't think in his price range, there's so many other better plays, I think, with higher totals and more upside. David Montgomery, I think, is an absolute lock here. Gibbs is out again. And if they get up, like he does everything. Like he runs the ball, he can catch the ball out of the backfield a little, and he should be around to run the clock out unless it's a super blowout like last week where we saw Craig Reynolds come in and take over. But I think Montgomery will definitely be able to pay off his price tag and then some. St. Brown being back, I think he'll be fine. Definitely in play here. Jameson Williams moved up to the second on the depth chart, and he's explosive. He was like super exciting as a rookie, had a great college career. So I think he's definitely going to make some noise, but you still have Josh Reynolds and they're running plays for him out of the backfield. And then Raymond's hanging around also. And then you have the ageless wonder, Marvin Jones, who probably won't see much action now that you have St. Brown, Williams, Reynolds, and Raymond all in play. But again, he's always there. What might help these wide receivers too is like Portis thinks he's going to play. He sounds optimistic, but the medical staff doesn't as much. So I have him as questionable, but leaning towards doubtful for him. So Brock Wright might come in, or Dale Daniels. I'm not interested in either one of those. I think that just puts more targets for Brown, get Jameson Williams involved, Josh Reynolds and Raymond, and maybe Marvin Jones catches 3 passes or something like that. So definitely a lot of upside here. Not huge fan of Goff, except Montgomery, absolutely. St. Brown, if you can get into him. Williams and Reynolds, maybe. And Laporta, if he plays, potentially. But I think there's better tight end plays if you're paying up. I just go up to Hawkinson, or there's other ones that are, like Goddard's about the same price point. On the Tampa Bay side, Baker Mayfield, like I think he's had a really solid season, but this Detroit defense has been very solid also. So I don't know how much I like White here. Sean Tucker's starting to emerge. Also, might start to eat into his shares. Mike Evans is a little bit banged up, so I'll just have to see how well he's doing. Godwin's still there also, but I think out of all of them, especially Evans is out for some reason. Otten, the tight end at 3.2, is super cheap. He should be able to do enough in this offense to be able to pay off his price tag. So I have a lot of shares of him if I'm not paying up for tight end in my lines. Game of the week, probably offensively, should be Arizona Cardinals and Los Angeles Rams. As a 47.5 total, Rams are favored by 7. Dobbs, I think, is in play. A lot of people played him in cash last week, and it paid off. I think they might have another chance to do that here. They lost Connor as a running back for a long period of time, and Ingram is not the answer, even though he's listed as a starter. But they brought D Mercado out, can catch the ball out of the backfield, electric player, can do so many things. He and Chuba Hubbard are my favorite value backs. I'd take the two of them over Foreman just because of their pass catching ability on DK, and the weather conditions are much better in their games. But I think some people will still play a lot of Foreman also, and because DeMarcado is just a little bit more expensive, but I would prefer to get up to him just for the pass catch upside. Marquise Brown is questionable. Looks like he should play. That's why I have him as the dark green. Great one to run back from the Rams here. Michael Wilson was really good a game ago, had a hard matchup last week, and I think he could probably bounce back. And I think people will be off of him. Like, people chased him last week, and I know I had some shares of him too because I thought that he was going to be decent, but he just didn't work out last week. So I think people kind of stray away. But I think this might be a chance, especially if Brown's out too, to go back to him. And Zach Ertz, I think, used to be super popular in this price range. Like Ertz, Pitts, and Thomas from Washington are like just $100 apart from each other. And it seems like the ownership percentage is heavily favoring Ertz. But the dude's old, and Arizona's been playing with like sometimes two tight ends and sometimes like mixing in all three. So I don't think that he's going to have like a monopoly on target shares out of the tight end position. So I definitely I'm going to lock in Mercado and cash. Ertz, if he's your favorite, that's fine. I think Pitts has the best matchup out of the three of them. So I might be leaning there. And then Marquise Brown, I'll be playing some in cash if I'm playing Rams on the other side. And Wilson, I'll consider also as an option. Stafford, I think he's solid in cash. So I think it's going to be either Lawrence or Stafford for your quarterback in most of your cash games. Stafford's a little bit more expensive or a little cheaper than Lawrence, so it opens up things. Kyron Williams, definitely think you can play here, especially if you think it's going to be a blowout. Should get some carries at the end. I know they're working Rivers in, but not a ton. Like Williams is still there, should have a solid role. Cooper Kupp came back and looked like Cooper Kupp, so he's definitely healed, ready to go. I'm glad I threw him in a couple GPP lines there. And Nakua did not lose a ton. They got rid of like I said, who did he end up on? The Panthers or Seahawks? No, it was the Falcons, was it? Yeah, Van Jefferson. So he's gone. So that opens up Atwell to be the deep threat and Nakua and Kupp to be the slot and like guys catching balls across the middle. Tyler Higbee's there also, but definitely starting to look like they're not there yet, but they're getting back to like what the Rams were a couple of years ago when they won the Super Bowl. We're not talking about the greatest show on turf yet, far from that, but a lot of potential with Kupp and Nakua to and a decent running back in Williams to be able to start to put some pieces together there. So if you're stacking this game, like I said, it would take Stafford and Kupp if you can get to it. If you can get to Nakua, that's awesome. Atwell would be more of a GPP pairing there. I wouldn't play Higbee, but I'd run it back with Marquise Brown. Even DeMarcado makes sense too. If they're behind, he's going to be catching balls out of the backfield. So that's where we're going with that. Final game, we have the Eagles going to New York to play the Jets. The 42.5 total. Phillies favored by almost a touchdown, 6.5. So Hurts, I think, is definitely in play. I think if you want to pay up, he's the only one there with no Allen, with no Mahomes on here, with no Lamar Jackson. He's the only one that has like rushing equity also. He's obviously the goal line back with the tush push or the brotherly shove or whatever you want to call that ridiculous play that the NFL will probably ban eventually, but not yet. Swift is in play here also. The Jets have a really good defense the first couple of weeks, but they've just kind of fallen off after that. It was like more matchup. So like they were strong against the Bills and a couple other teams, but then like I think the Eagles are definitely can exploit some things here. So Swift definitely in play. Think he's matchup proof there. He's definitely the number one back that they have, and AJ Brown's definitely the number one wide receiver. Devonta Smith is out there. He'll have some weeks here and there, but Brown is definitely getting the target share, and Goddard, the tight ends, in play also. So, if I was stacking them, which I really didn't like the spread and the total on this one for a stack, but I think Hurts, if you can get up to him with cash, I'm fine with it. But I think I'm playing more like stacks in in GPP, going like Hurts, Swift, the Philadelphia defense, and Brown, maybe some Goddard on DK if I can get 5 players instead of 4. Jet side, Zach Wilson, I'm not touching. Brees Hall has getting more carries, but I think the Eagles have a decent defense. So I can see using him as the run back potentially because he's a lot cheaper. And some of the higher price running backs and wide receivers that you'd be running things back, and you can catch a lot of balls out of the backfield. Garrett Wilson, I think, just definitely needs to score to I don't think he's going to get there in volume. Lazard might at 3.7. He doesn't need that much, and he's pretty sure-handed. And Conklin, the tight end, I like also. So let's look at the positions, and then I'll get to the lines for you for the course. So like I said, for QB, Hurts is like number 1, Tua, and then Fields. Fields would probably move up a little bit if the weather wasn't going to be so bad. Middle range, I think this is where everybody's going to live. Stafford, Lawrence, and Burrow. I have them ranked that way, but the more I think about it, I think can't really look how I have them ranked here. I think anybody's in play. I think I like Stafford the most just because his price was the cheapest out of all of them. But all 3 of them definitely in play. Cheap Howell, but again, he might end up at his backside a lot. Muirfield, tough matchup be there. And if you want to take a cheap punt, then Walker from Cleveland at 4K or Minshew from Indianapolis. I'm fading Young, I'm fading Goff, I'm fading Zach Wilson. And I'm just cautious of Burrow with his calf still and Carr with his shoulder. Richardson and Watson are out. For running back, Montgomery is definitely ahead of class. Christian McCaffrey, if you can get up to him, he's a much better play if Elijah Mitchell is out, but it's just you're paying so much that you're sacrificing in so many areas in your cash play. It's more of a GPP play. Jacobs like the matchup, NTN like the matchup. If you're willing to pay up for your running back, I think they're solid choices also, but Montgomery's by far my favorite. Kamara, I think's matchup proof. Love him in the mid range, and Mostert without having anybody else in the backfield there in a high total game are 2 solid plays. Kyron Williams is good, and then Swift also against the Jets I like. But I think people are going to live in this section here. Hubbard and DeMarcado are definitely my favorite. They're cheap backs, sub 5K on teams that should be passing the ball and getting rushing yards and pretty much have a monopoly on that. Madison should be in play also too with the passing game diminished with the loss of Jefferson, and Foreman with the loss of the running backs in Chicago should be in play in a sloppy game. If they keep it on the ground, then he could have a good game, but he's not much of a pass catcher. So on DK, I think that kind of hurts his upside. I'm fading Taylor, I'm fading Ford, I'm fading Stevenson, and I'm fading Mixon just because he hasn't done much. For wide receivers, any of these 4 are fine. Hill, Kupp, Chase, Nakua. Chase, I think, is my favorite out of them, but depending on how you're stacking with a quarterback, any of the 4 work. In the over 6K range, Pittman, Ridley, I think are in really good matchups there. Waddle, I think it's just a matter of time before he has a really, really big game. And without the other running back catching balls out of the backfield, that might open up things for him. DJ Moore had an absolute smash game on Thursday Night Football against Washington, and it could have another great game here if the weather cooperates. And then St. Jerome being back, he just is a target monster for Detroit. Mills, this 5 to 6K range, I think, is where people are going to live also. Thielen has just been super solid for getting targets. Brown for if he's in for the Cardinals. Kirk with the loss of Zay Jones is in a great spot, and Addison should be the number 1 receiver now on Minnesota. And cheaper sub 5K guys, Thomas for the short passing game with Carr's shoulder not being 100%. Downs in Indianapolis has great rapport with Minshew. KJ Osborne should be the wide receiver 2 with Minnesota, even though Hawkinson's there, maybe the wide receiver 3, but should be open for targets. And then Bourne from the Patriots, I think, is just the last guy through in there as potential punt. Tight end, Hawkinson, if you want to pay up, great matchup. Like I said, number 2 wide receiver in a heavy passing offense that lost their best wide receiver. Goddard's definitely in play against the Jets, and Kittle, I think, is in play also in San Francisco, but could be a blowout. The medium range, definitely like here too. Ingram is definitely in play, especially pairs well with if you're playing Lawrence, the quarterback. Komet It's been solid recently, and Higbee's in probably the highest total game of the slate. But I think people again are going to live in this cheap range here with Ertz, Pitts, and Logan Thomas. Um, some very strong options at tight end for you. And then if you need to go cheaper than that, and Jonnu Smith and Conklin are all, I think, in play also. For defenses, I think the best buys are Minnesota and Detroit. If you want to pay up, San Francisco or Philly work. If you need to punt, New England or Chicago could get it done. And then also in play are Miami and Atlanta. And I would think we should avoid Carolina and Arizona. So I already talked about the stacks in the breakdown. You can look at them down there and build from there. So let's reveal what our cores are going to be. Maybe. So again, Lawrence or Stafford thinks you can be quarterback. DeMarcado or Hubbard, no surprise there. It's running back. Kirk, Downs if I'm going Lawrence to run it back with, and Brown if I'm going Stafford to run it back with. Chase goes with the Lawrence build, and then Cup with Stafford to match there. And then tight end, either get Hawkinson or go down to the cheap or sub 5 guys like Otten. Bunch of different defenses you can play, and then just see what you have left for your flex. I think a lot of people will have Foreman there and go with all the running backs, but I'd like to try to get up to like a higher price running back. I'd like to get Kamara, Mozart, or Montgomery in my line in the flex if I possibly can. For GPP on DK, I threw 2 builds out here: Hurts, Madison, Brown, Addison, Otten, and Philly to go with the quarterback. On the other side, Tua, Mozart, Hill, Thielen to run it back with, Otten still at the tight end, and then Minnesota is the defense. On FanDuel, it's pretty much almost the same build that we're looking at as DK Cash one, but a couple of defensive options I gave you there where I didn't give you them in DK. And then GPP, I'm just pretty much going with the Philly one: Hurts, Madison, Brown. Good run back with Lazard, Otten or Conklin there, San Francisco or Philly in the builds that I've had. I could definitely pay up for defense, and I think that's going to differentiate me a little bit in this slate. So I got for you. Sorry, it's always long and a lot, but hopefully it's a lot of good information for you. So if it helped you, you can help us back by liking the video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing with your friends. If you want more information off DFS, as I said earlier on, it's in the description of the video. So you can go there and go to our website and sign up for our packages. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat below. So appreciate you watching. Check out all the other cool stuff on our channel that we have. I should be back tomorrow, Monday, for the Monday Night Football breakdown video and the Thursday breakdown video. So look out for those, and good luck in your contest. Hope you have an amazing weekend. I'll see you next time.